This is a mushroom island surrounded by the enormous glaciers of a frozen ocean, and this is an ocean monument. These were added to Minecraft just over 10 years ago. To this day, they remain some of the strongest sources for XP and two of the most beautiful blocks in the game, dark prismarine and sea lanterns. Farming them is not usually easy, as most farm designs require you to A. destroy the monument, B. drain the surrounding space, and C. create the farm, which basically everyone does, and it looks cool, don't get me wrong, but I think it's a little overdone at this point. For what I have in mind, I'll need to A. destroy the monument, then B. create the farm, and C. do a little spawn proofing, which sounds like a lot less work, and maybe we'll come up with a cool design for it. We already have the perfect set piece. So I had this idea a while back. I wanted to try and make a guardian farm, but I didn't want to go through the effort of draining an ocean monument, and I knew about ENX04's farm design that uses just the corner of the monument and a little bit of soul sand, and I thought that was a lot less restricting and could kind of let me design something that was a little outside the norm for these farms. My first idea was like, well, what if we picked up the ocean monument and put it like in the hand of a giant or something that's picking it up and going to crush it, which I still think is a great idea, but I started spinning on the hand idea, like whose hand was it? Why are they doing this? And obviously it had to be Poseidon, right? I mean, Greek god of the seas, makes sense. So Poseidon is beefing with the monument, but that doesn't sound super cool. So I said, okay, what if instead of the monument, Poseidon was beefing with a guardian, but like a really big one? At first, I tried making a realistic guardian, but that turned out way too cursed. I decided to stick to a more lore accurate one in the next try. I made our Poseidon roughly the same scale as the Guardian if we're going off of Minecraft proportions, and I wanted this to feel like it could really happen on this scale, some kind of epic kaiju battle off the coast of this mushroom island, and even though the sketch was far from pretty, my vision for what I wanted was very strong. I started with the Guardian again, this time getting a strong sense of the lore-accurate shape I wanted. And in order to keep the farm working, I had to keep the bottom open. It looks a little weird, but honestly from most angles I don't even notice it. I knew Poseidon was going to be the more challenging of the two, so I swapped back and forth, starting with the head shaping and then moving to outlining the rest of his body. I decided to get both of their shapes right before working on any sort of texturing for their bodies. At this point, I was regretting throwing everything at an angle, but in the end, I knew it was going to be well worth the struggle. There was just one more step we needed to take. We actually had the majority of the resources in our storage room, so after those two little excursions, we had everything we needed to get this build going. I just need to clear a little space and we're all set. Now, at first, Poseidon was all gray, and I needed some kind of way to differentiate the lights and the shadows. So we textured him, but we didn't really texture him. We more of shaded him with darker blocks and lighter blocks to give highlights and low shadows in certain areas. Now, on the Guardian, we just added kind of these darker spots here with the copper, and I like to think of these as sort of scars. Like, this thing is some ancient Guardian. It's been around for a long time. It's been in plenty of fights, and all of these are kind of scars on its bodies from all those altercations. Because when it comes to texturing this, I really wasn't sure what else to do. I started adding these in as just little spots to break up all the prismarine bricks, and then the lore just kind of formed from itself. Because if you look at a Guardian, they kind of do have spots just kind of everywhere, and I kind of wanted a reason for there to be spots there. So these lore-wise are going to be battle scars. And we don't know if this Guardian is going to survive this fight or not. The fight is in the middle of happening, so we don't really know what the outcome is. But hopefully the Guardian gets a couple more scars and is able to keep it on keeping on. It has been raining so much and I kind of hate it. But moving on, another detail that we added is this beam here. So the Guardians, they have their attack where they kind of target something, and let's see if we can find one that's doing it. There's a lot of squid around here. But basically they find something that they want to kill. Actually, let's just use myself. If you want to shoot me, Mr. Guardian. So they have this beam that comes out of their eyeball, and it kind of turns from a purple to an orange to a yellow to a green, if you see that at the last second. And the kind of stage that we went for was the orange, because it matched all of the little, oh, I'm gonna die if I don't get out of here. It matched all of their the thorny bits on the outside and stuck out really well against the blue background that we have. And orange just kind of gave us the best kind of pop. I'm pretty happy with the way that the beam turned out. I wish there was a way to make it pop more. I tried adding these end rods in here to give it a bit of brightness, but it didn't really work the way I wanted it to. Concrete didn't really work because it was too bright, and just adding like full blocks was not really doing it for the beam. So we just did all glass and those couple of end rods and some glass panes, and it looks okay. It doesn't look awful, but you know, we get the idea across, and I don't know, maybe you guys have some kind of ideas for how to make this just a little bit better. The only issue I have is that it just doesn't stand out as well as I want it to. Like from this angle, you can kind of tell, but the sky is also pretty dark. Whenever it's light outside, it's kind of harder to tell, and it's just something I have to suck up and live with. So initially I had this arm grabbing onto the Guardian and kind of like holding it in place, but it didn't really look right, just set up against the Guardian. I couldn't really get it to stand out and look like a hand. I don't think it looks like a hand as is, but we did the best we could with the shaping, because it's, I mean, on this scale, it was kind of hard to get something that looked right, and I think this looks good enough. But I had the idea to bring the hand from out here and up to here so it's blocking the beam, because this is the middle of a fight, right? It's not going to be one-sided, Poseidon having his weapon and the Guardian not really doing anything else. So we added the beam, we added him blocking his arm, and it looks a lot better that way than having it over here holding the Guardian. We also kind of switched the orientation. The trident was on this side. We just basically mirrored the build in half because I thought it looked better for thumbnail purposes, and it also is a more coherent angle from over here. I think it's better looking overall, and it's just a slight little change that we did. So if we look at the back, you can also see I did a lot of texturing here. This is a very harsh shadow because I wanted to plant the light about up here on, we have a zombie on his shoulder. I wanted the light to come from about this angle. Maybe it's casting off of this light beam over here, but the majority of the light I wanted to be coming from this angle, basically, like if the sun was in this area. So from there, we kind of decided where our highlights are going to go, up here, and then where all of the shadows are going. So this side is a lot darker than this side. We have a lot more of the lighter blocks and then a lot more of the darker blocks. And then under here, obviously a very large shadow. Maybe some of these blocks need to be darker, but I'm not too worried about it. And then of course we have our harshest shadows there, and yeah, pretty much. And another thing, I made his eyes raw gold blocks. I'm not sure how I feel about it. I kind of like it, but at the same time it sticks out pretty hard. So I tried a couple other blocks, they just didn't really work, and I found gold was kind of the best little in-between spot, but I'm just not really sure what to do with those eyes. And then we also do have texturing down here on the legs, but we did a very, very simple job of texturing compared to what we did up top. We used just mossy cobblestone, and some mossy bricks, because, you know, these legs are underwater all the time, so I figured they'd be basically green. And we also really don't see them from many angles. Only if you get like really close can you tell that there is something going on. So I didn't feel like going too hard with the texturing. I think that's basically it with this farm. We didn't change too much from the initial designs before we did our texturing. We just added a couple little extra details, and there is still a lot more that I want to add to this area. I think it'd be cool to have some custom glaciers, maybe made out of glass, and some snow layers. That way we kind of keep them spawn proofed. I think it'd be cool to have fog going around, and just kind of more elements of a battle scene happening, because right now it looks like there's a battle happening, but we don't have that feel like this place is an active battle zone. So eventually I want to come back and add a bunch of those items, those elements that'll kind of add more life into this area. Ooh, another thing that I thought would be super cool, you know how, I mean, this is based off of a Minecraft trident, and you know how we can get the channeling enchantment on tridents? I thought it would be so cool if we made like a custom thundercloud and the lightning bolt that was like getting attracted to the trident, or, you know, about to strike the Guardian. And I don't know, I think that that would be such a cool element to add to this build, and I just didn't feel like doing it today because I wanted to get feedback from y'all on what you guys would think would be cool to add, and I was also a little tired of this build. It took me a long time to design, and I'm just kind of worn out at the moment, so I don't mind putting a pin in this and coming back later when y'all have time to leave your suggestions and when I have time to recharge my batteries. Ooh, and before I ramble too long, I wanted to show off this tail. It's a very subtle curve, but it adds so much movement to the Guardian. Like, this thing does not move other than its tail and the spiky things that come in and out. But adding this like very subtle curve to it and giving it this motion, I felt was so cool. I also added these spikes to it, the top of it. The Guardians do not have these spikes, but I figured if they had these gigantic spikes, they probably developed some along their spine as well. It kind of makes sense anatomically and anatomically, and I think it makes sense. It just makes sense that they would have these spikes on them. So that was a cool little detail. This curve I really like, and yeah, it goes all the way around, and we got a cool fin. All in all, I love this build. I love how creative we were able to get with it. I love how unique it is. I haven't seen anything like this before, so I was really happy that we were able to put this together, and I'm happy that it looks really cool. Obviously, we have still a lot more to do with it, but for now, this has been a really fun project. Okay, I know this isn't for everyone, and this definitely is not the channel to be doing this, but someone's gonna ask, so here's the redstone. Okay, this is the last stop today. This is our item sorter and item collector, dropper, thingy, whatever. It takes all the items from the Guardians that fall out of this central nether portal here, and they go into a lot of hoppers, which go into dropper things. They shoot them out into this powdered snow, and then they go onto this block here. Let me turn this on so you can actually see what's happening. So flick this lever and push this button, and things will start moving. Basically what's happening is these blocks are on a timer, and they push the items that fall through the snow blocks onto this central slime block, and then the slime block gets launched over here. They get aligned on the honey, and the items go down to our item sorters. And we have 4 different systems to drop items in because that's how fast it needs to be for all the items that come out of this farm. It's not even optimized, and this farm shoots out way too many items. I believe there should be some in the system. Yeah, so from just a little time that we spent in the overworld, we had a bunch of extras shoot out here. If I had a camera account or anything, I could show you how this actually works when you're on the overworld side and there's a bunch of items throwing out. We can't really do that in single player, so you just kind of have to trust me. There's a lot of items that come through here, and it is a crazy system. But really this just comes down to 4 different droppers and some timing with the pistons. And it's pretty simple, but you know, it has to be really fast, so we kind of had to configure it in a weird way, but it was fun to kind of puzzle together. I kind of like doing redstone puzzles. Okay, that is going to do it. Ladies and gentlemen, people of all ages, I really appreciate you being here. I'm sorry this took me so long to get out, but this was a gigantic project and a gigantic undertaking. So I appreciate you being here. I hope you enjoyed today's video. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, people of all ages, I hope you have a wonderful day.